Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, the collaboration of Japanese and Hong Kong architecture design. First of all, I would like to invite Mr. Ricky Fong, Director of Osaka Office, Hong Kong Trade Development Council, to moderate today's webinar. Ricky-san, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm pleased to welcome friends not only from Hong Kong and Japan, but also we have friends from China, Southeast Asia, Europe, US to join us today at the webinar on sustainability, the collaboration of Japanese and Hong Kong architectural design, one of the events of Design Inspire, hosted by Hong Kong TDC. This webinar is co-organized by Hong Kong TDC and Japan Building Materials Association. And today we would like to focus on the theme of comfortable and environmental friendly architectural design from Japan and the collaboration of Japanese and Hong Kong architectural design. Before we move on to the discussion, allow me to give you some background information. The real estate market in Hong Kong has been enjoying steady growth for the past few years, mainly supported by the strong local demand, despite the difficulties that we are experiencing now. We have witnessed the development of the West Kowloon Culture District, with so many projects being completed, such as the M+. With the announcement of 2030 plus policy by the Hong Kong government, there would be more new projects coming, including the Airport City, East Lantau Metropolis, and so on. Hong Kong is trying its best to meet the demand of the increasing population towards the end of 2040s, which is expecting to grow by 1 million people, which means we need more residential and commercial buildings. Hong Kong is the largest foreign investor in the real estate market in China and plays a very influential role in the real market in the region. Furthermore, with the integration of Hong Kong, Macau, and the Greater Bay Area, what we call the GBA, we foresee that there will be some major projects, including the surrounding areas of the high-speed rail station in the GBA, which some Hong Kong developers have already engaged in. On the other hand, Japan experienced its peak in the construction industry in the late 1980s, with total construction unit reached 1.86 million. However, the market has been leveling off for the past 15 to 20 years, with only around 1.2 million units constructed annually. However, Japan will be hosting the World Expo in 2025, which will be taking place in Kansai, Osaka, where I'm in now. Some of the major projects related to the Expo will start in Umeshima and Sakishima in 2023. However, Osaka is very confident in winning the bid of inducing IR project into the city, which include casinos, resort hotels, and many more, which will happen after the World Expo 2025. Inbound tourists would be coming back to the region after the pandemic. The city definitely needs more accommodation facilities, recreation facilities, and commercial buildings. So today we do see that there's business opportunities in both markets, and today we would like to discuss with 3 architects and designers about the collaboration between the 2 regions. Without further ado, let me move on to discussion. First, I would like to call upon Mr. Keith Chan, who is a passionate young interior designer in Hong Kong, and also the founder of Integral Limited. Keith is a big fan of Japanese culture and design, and he implements a lot of Japanese design concepts and materials in some of his high-end projects in Hong Kong. Hong Kong people love Japan, and there were more than 2 million Hong Kong tourists visited Japan in 2019, which means 1 out of 4 Hong Kong citizens visited Japan in 1 year. At the same time, we do see more and more residential and commercial buildings in Hong Kong implementing Japanese design as well as building materials from Japan. What is the level of acceptance of Japanese design and building materials in the Hong Kong market? In this regard, I would like to invite Keith to comment on this from a perspective of an interior designer in Hong Kong. Please, Keith, please.
Thank you, Ricky-san. Konnichiwa, and good afternoon. Let me share my screen first. Okay, so good afternoon. This is Keith. I'm an interior designer and the founder of the Integral, we're based in Hong Kong, but recently setting up a business in London, and we are having project in Los Angeles. It's my honor to give you a sharing today. So when we are talking about sustainability, we usually talk about, we mean eco-friendly or fair trade, or something responsible to our planet. Of course, these are very important topic to our world, but at the same time, I think to sustain our historical value of a city or a country, and then to let the craftsmanship to pass the skill and the technique to our next generation is also important. And this is somehow important to Hong Kong. Firstly, I will talk about how the Hong Kong manufacturing craftsmanship raised in the 1950s and why they are declined in the 1980s, and how the generation nowadays in Hong Kong is going to reborn our craftsmanship by learning the leading country, especially from Japan or sometimes from Europe. And then secondly, I will show you how we adapt Japanese craftsmanship and material to Hong Kong design market. So here you go. In the 50s to the 70s in Hong Kong, in my grandparents' time, the woodwork, the metalwork, and then the watches, toy are very, very popular in the world. It is like a world-class factory for the world manufacturing. Even Burberry, it was made in Hong Kong. And we have a lot of famous toy factory in Hong Kong. So we actually has a very good skill and technique back to 50 years ago. But due to the fast growth of the Hong Kong economy in the 80s, people are more keen on making money by stock market, land and properties. And people in the 80s did not preserve and sustain the unique culture in a good way. So the craftsmanship has not been passed to our generation. And our young people in the 90s or 2000 are no longer going into the craftsmanship industry. But nowadays, after a few decades, both of the political and the economy environment has changed. Young people want to find back Hong Kong's roots and where their grandparents came from. Young people think that money is important, but not only the only value in this city, and they want to find our own character and the culture. I was born in the 80s, so my generation is deeply influenced by the Japanese culture. I still remember we watched Japanese animation like Doraemon or Chibi Maruko-san. We enjoy Japanese culture like music, movie, TV drama, and fashion. And when I was educated in the design school, we learned from the leading Asian designer and architects from Japan, loving their works from master like Ando Tadao-san or younger one like Nando. I still remember these people influence a lot to me. And even now, I still subscribe to Japanese magazines like Casa Brutus to keep myself updated. I think it's all because we are close in location and culture. Japan is always a reference when we do the design, when we learn and look up to. So now Japan is where we learn and we are inspired to appreciate, to sustain our culture. So in these few years, I think the millennial in Hong Kong loves joining wood workshop or ceramic workshops. Like this photo show you is called Yat Mok, means one wood. Is a local Hong Kong carpenter who learned his skill from Taiwan and mainland China, and also being inspired by the Japanese woodwork. And also, this is called Hama Studio, a local pottery artist, learned from his father, and then he twists the style to adapt the updated trend. They both sell products and also teach classes and lessons in let more young people to learn about our craftsmanship. And nowadays, we have more and more young artisans working in Hong Kong with a very high standard of skill and craftsmanship. And this is the reason why I have more chances to apply the Hong Kong and Japan culture and artisans or their craftsmanship to my projects. So you know, Hong Kong is a very fast and busy city. Most of the business focus on the speed and the cost efficiency. Sometimes we sacrifice the quality and sacrifice the craftsmanship. But luckily, in these past 10 years, I think the rise of the young generation reminds us the importance of the unique experience and the storytelling, and we have to find back our roots in our own culture. And then they rethink and explore their identity in Hong Kong, so they go back to the history and trace the local story. Let me share some cases that I adapt local artisans and Japan design philosophy into our projects and to a Hong Kong market. Last year, we designed a home for a Chinese medicine practitioner, kind of a Chinese medicine doctor who loves Japanese culture like me. And we integrate the Japanese materials and products and furniture to create a calming place for his home and also for his mother. Starting from the entrance, this is the foyer. You see the lower part is the wall is made by Naguri. We bought this wood from Kyoto, and we built a foot lamp here to reflect the wood texture surface to create a warm entrance. And then at the same time, you see a stool here. The stool is designed by myself and made in Hong Kong by a local carpenter. And can you see the light switch near the door? It's actually from Japan. We bought it in Rakuten. And then you will see a traditional shoji designed by us and made by a Japanese shoji factory called Kitote. And this is actually introduced by HKTDC a few years ago in the Design Inspire in Hong Kong. And this is the first collaboration between us. Even a small collaboration, it gives a big impact. Before the COVID, actually, we have visited to their factory in Wakayama, and we coordinate the production. And this is Otaki-san of Kitote, and this is Sunny-san from my company. Next to the shoji, our client found a wood slab when he traveled to Japan, and then he bought it and we modified it into a slab to be a wooden shelf for a bonsai at the hallway and also a shelf in the kitchen. He also loves cooking a lot, so we help him to source the best kitchen appliances like the Lissil, the sink from Japan, and a Fujio exhaust fan here. This is a simple example how we make use of Japanese materials and the touches to a modern home in Hong Kong. With our network, we design in Hong Kong and let our design made in Japan. Hong Kong designer is like a bridge to tell the Japanese supplier what kind of materials and products are suitable in Hong Kong market and our usage. And this is an example, a second example. We designed a penthouse in the city in Kowloon for a couple earlier this year. You may feel it is like an European or Scandinavian style because of the decoration or the color palette. But when you look in the detail, there's some Japanese wisdom, I would say, that we have transformed from Japan to the Hong Kong apartment. Firstly, in the layout, we need to accommodate a flexible uses as a couple loves parties and friends, and their parents would sometimes come from Canada to stay here for their vacation. So usually this is a living room, and when their parents come, it becomes a guest room, but most of the time they open up to be a second living room for sitting or reading or listening to the music. So this is actually inspired by the blur boundary in the traditional Japanese houses using shoji to be the partition. And also, if you see here, above the headboard of the bed is actually the Shikui plastering wall. Shikui is actually very suitable for Hong Kong's humid weather because it absorbs humid. And yet it looks very modern when it is a very traditional material in Japan. But in Hong Kong, we turned it into a very Western style. Very surprisingly, it mixes with the style very well. We have also selected furniture from Japan, like the dining table, the chairs, and the stool, and this little trolley. They are from Fuji Furniture from Hokkaido, and some are from Hita from Japan. And these are these are some of our design work that merged Japanese and Hong Kong design together. And apart from the interior design, we are also very excited to collaborate with Union now to design a door handle that is going to be a mass production, which is suitable for Hong Kong's home. We met them in Design Inspire a few years ago, and then we exchanged a few meetings in both Osaka and Hong Kong. We came up a collaboration earlier this year, and at this time we were facing the COVID-19, but we were able to make it happen through the online meetings. We have the 3D modeling, and then they send us the prototype. And I'm very happy that the Union Nakai-san sent us the video last week that our door lock handle is now being manufactured. And finally, we see the end product. The concept of this lever handle is from bamboo. It is actually the bamboo joint between the stem and another stem of the bamboo. I think bamboo is simply an oriental beauty, also the character of integrity and elegance. You know, bamboo is important in both Japanese and Hong Kong culture or Chinese culture. It representing health and a good manner. I wish to use the bamboo as a starting point to be a bridge between my design studio and the Japanese product. We will be using this handle in our upcoming project for a pair of young couple in Tai Po area in Hong Kong. We are looking forward to launch it when we do a shooting, photo shooting in this project. It will be finished about a month later. And besides, this is the Tai Po house that I mentioned with the door lock from Union. And besides my project, I actually see a lot of good examples from the Design Inspire. I think they are very suitable to the Hong Kong market. For example, a few years ago, I visited Woodworks showroom in both Tokyo and Osaka. And then we met again in Hong Kong. I see their works like the kitchen cabinet or the doors or their tables, furniture, a very good fit for Hong Kong market because it is relatively less expensive than those super luxury brand in Europe. And it is smaller in size as well compared to the Europe. And when Japan and Hong Kong share the both ergonomics, you know, our body size are a little bit smaller than the European. I think with the good quality from the woodwork, I think it gives a very good choice to the Hong Kong market that we can explore the good quality at the same time the size and the material are suitable for Hong Kong market. I heard that they have a tailor-made some doors for a project in the Peak, a very luxury project in Hong Kong. And I think with more promotion, I'm quite confident that there will be more and good cases to come. And for many years, I think Hong Kong users are we like material like marble or tiles from Italy or Spain, but now I think we are getting bored and want to get some new things. I can see that handmade tile are getting popular nowadays. So brand like Hirata Tile would be something we will be interested to explore in the future. Also because of its world-leading hygienic quality from Japan, I'm sure that it will become a popular brand in Hong Kong. We both share the same philosophy of appreciating Asians' touch, handmade touches. Also, we both concerned about hygiene. So in fact, many mothers in Hong Kong are keen on buying Japanese products when they renovating their houses. I think it is more healthy to their children and they feel more confident. Overall, I think Japanese culture impacted on how Hong Kong people appreciate beauty, craftsmanship, and lifestyle, and how Japanese people utilizing limited space to live well is where we connected because we both share very small spaces in our living environment. Not all Japanese design can be directly applied to Hong Kong design, but I think with some small changes, more twisted in the detail and the touches, there will be new experience where we will see the little trace of the Japanese culture. And as a Hong Kong designer, we are happy to give more comments to Japanese suppliers to tell them what products are adaptive and suitable to the Hong Kong, and how we can twist the design to fit our people's usage. In the opposite, when Hong Kong designer has project in Japan, we also need Japanese designers to help us to advise us the cultural difference, especially the habit or some legal issue as well. And I'm very confident that there will be still a lot of co-creation and collaboration chances and possibility in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. Some keywords that Keith has mentioned. He is one of the pioneers in bringing in new concept from Japan to Hong Kong. Also, he's also bringing in some new materials to Hong Kong. And one of the keywords that he mentioned was naguri, which is a special type of processed wooden products that you can be using in for panels, for walls, and so forth. And the other keyword that Keith has mentioned, which TDC has been promoting for many years, which is designed in Hong Kong, made in Japan, which Keith elaborated about the case he worked with Union, the handle. Then we would like to see more and more such kind of cases in the future. Thank you very much, Keith. And coming up, I would like to invite the next speaker, Mr. Masaki Hisatake, who appreciate natural elements such as lights, water, wind, and greenery. And it is actually strongly reflected in his design, not only in the traditional Japanese architecture projects, but also some of his modern design projects. And the famous Sagawa Art Museum in Shiga Prefecture he joined and designed is a good example. So people are more environmental conscious right now, and not only in Japan, but also in Hong Kong. People would like to choose to use more environmental friendly building materials, and maybe the owner would like to request for eco-friendly design. And in this regard, I would like to invite Hisatake-san to talk about some of his new ideas and new concept by introducing some of his project. Hisatake-san, please.
Thank you very much, Riki-san. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Hisatake, a Japanese architect. Today, I'm looking forward to talking with you about the possibilities of collaboration between Hong Kong and Japan. So, let's get started. At first, I'd like to start by talking about our idea of Japan design. Japan design is very simple and minimalistic, but it's also very rich. Why does Japan design fascinate people and make them feel comfortable? We believe that the reasons are: first, coexistence with nature; the second, materials that appeal to the five senses; the third, elaborate and delicate details, advanced craftsmanship. First, let's think about coexistence with nature. The framework of Japanese architecture, based on an axial structure, frames nature. Japanese architecture is also a reflector of nature. People who are there focus their attention on nature, and the building becomes a background. Architecture is unchanging, but nature is changing. Nature changes every moment of every day. Through architecture, people can feel the change of time and feel the four seasons. This leads to the Zen philosophy of calming the mind and wabi-sabi. Shinto, the Japanese religion, celebrates nature, and the tree gate which separates the natural world of Shinto shrine from the mundane world is considered to be the base of Japanese architecture. On the veranda with eaves, you can feel the wind. We can feel the soft light through the shoji and feel the light and shadows. The surface of the water reflects the light and carries a cool breeze. Rooms are created in connection with the garden. Japanese architecture enjoys the power of nature and it's so eco-friendly. It's truly sustainable architecture, and it's also compatible with today's corona environment. The second point is the sense of materials that appeal to the five senses. In Japan, natural materials such as bamboo, stone, soil, and paper have been used since ancient times, and they have enriched our sensitivity. Wood is now attracting attention as one of the most eco-friendly materials. Wood is fragrant and its flavor increases with age. It can be partially repaired or replaced, and is a sustainable material that absorbs CO2. The latest technologies such as non-combustible wood and coating technology have been developed, and the use of wood is expanding. The photos so far are the museum photos we joined and designed. The third point is exquisite details created by delicate Japanese craftsmanship. These are just some of the more than 200 materials and finishes that Union, a door handle company, offers. The handles that match the space are custom made from scratch with high technology. In addition, there is a case where tradition and innovation are combined in collaboration with gold leaf, a traditional craft. Gold leaf is an ultra-thin material of about 10,000 mm, which requires high technology to integrate with products. This is the world's first gold leaf flooring developed by Ikuta Flooring Company. This is a uniquely shaped handrail developed by Matsuroku, which deal with barrier-free products. This is a lighting fixture by Yahoo Electrics, a company that designs lights, and it's beautifully decorated while retaining the feel of the wrinkled material. We value these ideas of Japan design and reflect them in our projects. Please see the example below. This is a head office in the suburbs, which a hall and cafeteria with a cafeteria. It's about 100 meters long. There is a courtyard in the center, which is connected to the greenery inside the entrance. Slit windows and a light garden create a flow of wind. The skylights are fitted with perforated aluminum panels to control solar radiation, and soft sunlight pours in, eliminating the need of the interior lighting during the day. Greenery and water are provided in various spaces, and there is also a veranda with eaves. Under the courtyard, there is a cool pit using groundwater, and the stable temperature of the groundwater is used for natural ventilation. The furniture is made of local Yoshino wood, giving the office a woody aroma. This is an office and retail building in the city. In this building, the volume springs out, creating a place with eaves. The exterior is made of bricks with a screen that allows a moderate amount of sunlight to spill in, while also protecting privacy. Night view. As an example of framing nature, this is a gymnasium in a university campus. This is a headquarters building in the city, with a symbolic atrium for the city, and rooftop terrace on the upper floor. In the project, we also consider the way it looks at night to be important. Indirect lighting illuminates the city with soft Japanese-style light that seems to leak from the paper lanterns. Lastly, I would like to talk about an idea to recommend for Hong Kong. Our relationship with Hong Kong began when we participated in a design competition at the Hong Kong Design Institute in Chong Kwang Wo and were shortlisted. My impression of Hong Kong is that it's a very energetic city with a landscape of skyscrapers. Unlike Japan, which has earthquakes, the density is so extreme. And I also have the impression that there are a lot of movie stars, including Jackie Chan. The first thing we recommend is to create nature in high density. The idea is to create a void in the building and create a three-dimensional garden or sky terrace. In the HKDI competition, we also proposed to create voids in the building to allow wind to follow through. This is a proposal for vocational school in the city, and the structure of the cantilever creates a large terrace about the size of classroom. The rooftop is also green. One more thing we recommend is the use of eco-friendly material such as wood. This is an image of complex facilities with office, studio, and etc. One more thing we recommend is use of eco-friendly materials such as wood. This is an image of complex facilities, office, studio, and etc. In this building, wood is used abundantly in many places. This is CLT architecture as a further example of wood architecture. CLT is a cross-laminated timber, which is material made by combining lumber in orthogonal directions with each other for strength. One of the characteristics of CLT architecture is its fast construction speed that will match speed of Hong Kong. This is complex facility project with market, hotel, hall, and etc. Toward a carbon neutral world, we would like to work with the people of Hong Kong to create Japanese beautiful and sustainable architecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isatake-san. A few keywords that you mentioned is about the sustainable design and sustainable materials. The materials that you propose is wood, and actually, for the past, wood isn't something that Hong Kong would like to use because Hong Kong, as you may know, that is really humid and it's hot, and of course, a lot of insects problem, termite problems. So wood may not be an idea materials that Hong Kong would choose to use. But as you propose that the process of wooden products recently are actually quite high, and it is actually one of the solution that Hong Kong may consider in using in the future, because as people may know that Hong Kong is targeting for the carbon neutral by 2050, which are talking about, like a few years ago and later, then that might be one of the solution to solve this problem. Thank you very much for your sharing. And next, let us move on to calling the last speaker of today, Mr. Motoki Ishikawa. Is a young, again, yet a very talented architect who is also a founder of Motoki Ishikawa Architect and Associates. He is a frequent award winner of so many awards in the world, including the Good Design Award by the Japan Institute of Design and Promotion, the German Design Award by the German Design Council, as well as from Hong Kong. He also won the Design for Asia Awards by the Hong Kong Design Center. And we all appreciate Japanese design, and it is an architect, or maybe it's a product design. And also Japanese design inspire all of us, especially people in Hong Kong and people in Taiwan. I would like to invite Ishikawa-san to share with us about his thought on the potential of Japanese design in overseas. Ishikawa-san, please.
Okay. Wait. Thank you, Ricky-san. Nice to meet you. I'm Ishikawa from Motoki Ishikawa Architect and Associates. I am very pleased to be here to talk to you today. I have been designing in the field of architecture, interiors, and products since 2009. And my work ranges from small objects such as door handles to buildings. In order to include the culture and history that has been nurtured over the years, I try to make these designs universal by placing importance on location and time. In the course of these activities, I have received awards in Japan, Asia, Europe, and the United States. And my works have been featured in many media. Through some of my own work and Japanese manufacturing, today I would like to talk about some of the reasons why my work has been so well received by people from various countries. The first one is Nissan Terrace, a residential complex consisting of 4 three-story detached housing units, which has won many awards, including the IF Design Gold Award, one of the world's 3 major design awards. The simple rectangular grid plan connects each room with unified structural layout. And through the private garden and staircase, the spiraling 3-dimensional structure allows the flow of movement and the line of sight between units from the common areas to be controlled by the simple action of rotating the plan. By setting up a common area which rich greenery and a private garden that expands the space, we have created a lifestyle that is comparable to that of a detached house. The second project is Mochizuki Shoten, a 100-year-old sake store and residential building. It is a mixed structure, which the first floor store made reinforced concrete and the second floor residence made of wood. To facilitate future expansion and renovation, the reinforced concrete walls have sloping pillars for structural soundness. And the vertical surfaces on the interior side are filled with heat insulating material to create a space with small temperature change, but large air volume. The adjustable skylights in each space bring in soft light according to the scene, allow air to pass through and also serve to regulate the room temperature. The building is not completely isolated from the residential area, but shares natural light through the tunnel-like openings that allow one to feel the length of the entire building. We decided to create this relationship friendly sensible. Since ancient times, Japanese architecture has respected light and shadow, scenery, and wind, and has skillfully used locally available materials. such as wood and stone, to create minimalist and trunky spaces that are functional and free from excessive decoration. The aforementioned works were carefully designed to incorporate the benefits of nature based on these elements of Japanese architecture, using inherited techniques and simple materials of natural origin. I try to make the building sustainable by incorporating modern updated materials that can withstand the force of nature and take environmental issues into account. For example, similarly to Soi Giko, who is participating in the Design Square project, we designed furniture and fittings to fix these spaces and hired highly skilled craftsmen to produce them. The exterior cedar lattice work for the Nissan Terrace is designed for privacy and to prevent crime and deterioration of the building frame. The interior and exterior wood parts of the Nissan Terrace and Mochizuki Shoten were made by skilled carpenters using high-quality cedar wood produced by a system in which people plant, raise, and use the wood themselves. Similar to Yamacho, in addition, many of the chairs, soft seats, and wallpapers in the spaces I have worked on so far are manufactured by Sangetsu, who is also participating in this project. And we are also working with Sanei to develop original products that match these architectural elements. I believe that it was the design that emphasized passive and sustainable elements of Japanese architecture, as well as the high level of technology, high-quality manufacturing, and skilled workmanship of the Japanese manufacturers that led to the awards in each country. As I look at many designs for the awards from various countries, I can clearly see that Japanese manufacturing and Asian design can be applied anywhere in the world. Based on these experiences, we are now working with these manufacturers to develop products of even higher quality. Next year, we will be releasing a brand called S2M, which is a collection of handles, furniture, and building materials developed from these efforts in order to utilize the culture of manufacturing, such as inherited technology and tree planting systems. It is desirable to create and use high-quality products backed by such technology, and to create architecture that can encompass the culture and history of the place. I believe that architecture expressed in this way will resonate with many people, even in different countries. I believe that the introduction of such products into the market will be a great stimulus for the creation of spaces and products that reflect the unique culture of Hong Kong, and will also lead to the creation of more innovative products. I hope to see you all again in the Hong Kong market to share products that transcend national boundaries. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Ishikawa-san. And again, we also Ishikawa-san mentioned about some of the keywords that the previous two speakers have mentioned, which is again nature, again sustainable, and craftsmanship that we would like to see a lot. We have been seeing that a lot in Hong Kong. We will be hoping to see a lot in the future in Hong Kong as well. And so to summarize, the speeches by the three speakers, we listen to what Keith has been talking to us, is that he sees that there is a market in Hong Kong which may utilize some of the design from Japan. Not only that, also the sustainable materials that will be introduced into the market. But somehow the Hong Kong user, they might not be satisfied with the Japanese design without any modification. So it gives people like Keith, designer or architect in Hong Kong, to play a role to do some modification for the Japanese counterparts. At the same time, we also listened to the speeches by the two Japanese architects. The same keyword came out, which is sustainable. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that Hong Kong is targeting the carbon neutral by 2050. And behind it, China is also targeting to peak out the carbon by 2030 and to achieve carbon neutral by 2060. And we would like to see more and more new ideas from Japan. For example, Hisaki-san and Ishikawa-san mentioned about the use of power of nature. For example, the intake of natural light, sunlight from outside, the use of natural air by infloating natural air into the building can actually keep the building itself cooler. Eventually, we do not need to use so much energy. And one more thing is the circulation of groundwater. I'm pretty sure that there are quite a lot of groundwater in Hong Kong that we can make use of to cool down the building itself. So this kind of technology, there might not be a really, really high technology, but with some effort and the power of design, we can actually implement those kind of technology into the buildings in Hong Kong in the future. We hope to do that in the future. Thank you very much, three of you, for sharing your thoughts. And now let's move on to the free discussion. And so maybe first I would like to open the floor to maybe Hisatake-san to make some free comment or anything that you would like to ask the other panelists. Please feel free to do so.
Sorry, my opinion to the.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'd like to talk the collaboration of the between the Hong Kong and Japan. So before I talk about the collaboration between the two markets, I would like to talk a little about the collaboration between tradition and technologies. In the example of the Sagao Art Museum mentioned above, there's a fusion of the good qualities of traditional Japanese architecture with current technology. The partition between the tea ceremony room and the outside world is a huge piece of glass that opens automatically noiselessly, so that the visitors is not aware of its existence. Air-conditioned breeze flow out through slit under the floor, and lighting is so small that you can even tell it's there, and it shines in pin spots. In the near future, we'll see the integration of AI and IoT technologies. Innovation will require a new perspective. So now in Japan, the potential of Japanese market related to the World Expo is expanding, and there is a need for facilities to entertain people from overseas. Here, what foreign visitors to Japan perceive will become a new perspective, I think. People from overseas come from cultures and backgrounds that are different from those of Japan, and they feel differently the sense of comfort and discomfort they feel will be different from what Japanese people feel. This may become a new and more evolved perspective of Japan design. The important thing here is what to reserve and what to change. This is the source of innovation, and I believe that this is where the potential for collaboration between the two markets lies, I think. Okay, Riki-san. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I do understand that, of course, different culture has different type of thinking. And for example, we discussed before that maybe the design that the Japanese designer or architect might not fit 100% the demand of the user or the owner of buildings in Hong Kong or the investor in Hong Kong. But yet, it is not a good idea if the investor would like to ask you to design something. For example, we know that there are a lot of investors from Hong Kong investing into projects in Japan. For example, in Hokkaido, in Hakuba, there are a lot of resort hotels being invested by the Hong Kong investor. But yet, if the Hong Kong side would like to request you to do something, to design something which fit the Hong Kong taste, but it doesn't necessarily be a Japanese design. So maybe you have some kind of conflict in between. So in this regard, can Keith give some comment on how would the investor in Hong Kong think about the design in Japan?
Yes, because I think the cultural difference is still here. You know, Hong Kong investor more talking about money. When they invest, they want money return. So sometimes they are more keen on making a design that totally 100% suitable for Hong Kong or Chinese people's demand or their wishes. But I think as Riki-san said, also Hitake-san said, this is not necessary because if a tourist go to Japan, they want to try and experience something that is local. So as a bridge, I think Hong Kong designer is like a middle person to tell the Japanese designer and architects that what is our needs and why the investor from Hong Kong or from China expect those design. But for example, give you a very simple example that when I brought my team to Japan, we stay in a traditional house and we have a breakfast on the Engawa, the corridor. But we can't sit on the floor for a long time, not like Japanese. They can sit there for 3 hours, right? So I have to tell maybe the Japanese designer or Japanese architect or even their landlord that our habit is different. But I have to emphasize that it doesn't mean that we have to give up the traditional in Japan. I think as you guys said, wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is a very popular word in Hong Kong now because we want to find the basic of life and how to appreciate the beauty of nature now. After a few decades of fast and rapid economic growth. And I always tell my client that when we design a home, should be a home. When we design a hotel, you have to be more comfortable, not to show off the luxury. So I think Chinese people, Hong Kong people, and Japanese people actually share the same philosophy in our Asian time. We both, just like the Stanley Kuo back 2,000 years ago taught us, we have to put down our ego when we go into the tea room. So the tea room door is very small, very low. We have to bow to the nature, to our God, to enter the tea room ceremony and enjoy the tea because the tea is a gift from the God, from the superpower in the sky. And actually 1,000 years ago, both Chinese and Japanese share the same thinking. And I think we have to educate our landlord or investor that if we are going to design something in Japan, cater the other market from Japan or from Hong Kong or China, we still need to keep the DNA from Japan and as some media to educate the tourists how to appreciate Japanese philosophy. I think a good example is from Tokujin Yoshioka-san. He designed a totally 100% clear glass tea room and show it in Tokyo, Kyoto. It's like a tour in Japan to show that we can use extremely high-tech technology to design an extremely traditional design philosophy that has no conflict. Thank you, Ricky-san.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, again, that we need to actually let our investor or maybe the potential user of the Japanese design to understand the real value of the design itself. Design is not only for decoration. Design is about the philosophy of the whole thing. For example, it represents the philosophy of the designer himself or herself. And we do need to kind of let them know, not saying educating, kind of let them know the values behind the whole story. Thank you for your comment.
Sorry.
And
sorry, one more thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, not only the cultural difference between the client and designer, but also the workers, I think. I have an experience in Hong Kong that we designed a whiskey bar, a Japanese whiskey bar called Mitsunara, the library in Wan Chai. Let me show you a photo first. This is a Zen garden in Wan Chai. It's a totally Japanese design. The client is a Japanese couple who has a food and beverage business in Hong Kong to supply wine, beverage to a supermarket, and also they have their own whiskey bar in Wan Chai, serving mostly is Japanese, but also is famous among the whiskey circle in Hong Kong. And when they have this shop, they want to design and build a Zen garden outside the terrace to enjoy the moon and the light view. Even it is in the city, but they want to make a calm place for their customer. And they found their friend, which is a landscape architect in Japan to design. But when the designer finished the design, they told my client that they cannot execute and build the thing. So they need a Hong Kong team to execute it. So actually the architect is my friend, and then he called me and said, why not we collaborate together? And throughout this first really collaboration project in Hong Kong, I found that there's some cultural difference. First of all is, Japanese people, most of the people are very well planning. I'm not saying Hong Kong people is not well planned, but for example, when we have 100 steps for work, Japanese people will plan 200 steps ahead. For Hong Kong people, we just plan the first 50 steps. And then when we walk, when we adjust and fine tune everything. I'm not going to say this will lower the quality, but Hong Kong people are more flexible to give chances to changes. So during the work you see here, the workers without t-shirts are from Hong Kong. This is the Japanese designer, Tani-san. And this is a very interesting collaboration, is that they actually cannot speak English very well, both, but when they take up the tools, it's like an international language. And I think both of us, both Japanese and Hong Kong worker, learn from each other that, for example, we learn from Japanese that we need to plan ahead to make sure no mistake. But also in the Japanese workers and designer also learn from the Hong Kong teams that sometimes we have to be brave, more dare to walk first, and then we adjust the step later to make it happen. So after this, I was very touched because we both learned from each other, and it was a quite good example to our student and our next generation that how we can collaborate with the different cultural places. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. We talked about the cultural difference. Again, we would like to bring everybody back to one of the main theme of today's webinar, which is sustainability. I do see that Ishikawa-san has some ideas during the rehearsal. We hear something from him. Maybe can you share more about your ideas about sustainability?
Okay. I have a question for Keith. As I mentioned earlier, Japanese architecture is made by using naturally occurring materials such as wood, soil, and stone, which can be found anywhere. In addition, there are many ways to deal with the climate, such as using cotton mats to keep the house cool in summer and warm in winter.
Sorry, Ishikawa-san. Can you, because we cannot hear you clearly, can you speak a little bit louder? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Maybe we all mute except for Ishikawa-san.
Okay. Sorry. I have a question for Keith. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, Japanese architecture is made by using naturally occurring materials such as wood, soil, and stone, which can be found anywhere. In addition, there are many ways to deal with the climate, such as using tatami mats to keep the house cool in summer and warm in winter, and Shikui, Japanese-style plaster to control humidity. Sliding doors and lattice doors are effective in connecting the inside and outside of the house. And in these places, verandas are set up to let in wind and natural light throughout the year. In other words, Japanese architecture has always been built with great attention to the external environment. Today, many man-made products are being created and used in Japan for economic reasons. But the concept of Japanese architecture remains strong, and there is a lot of discussion about how to use the power of nature and use it within the architecture to reduce the load on the environment, as well as the impact of modern products themselves. The picture I am showing you is a house I recently designed, where I interpreted spaces such as the Doma, Asen floor, and Engawa, Japanese veranda, in a modern way, added windows and insulation materials that match the environmental performance of today, and created an exterior space like the Tsuboniwa in a courtyard, which is also based on such ideas. I believe that it is a good thing that Japanese architecture is accepted in Hong Kong, but I also believe that if we can understand and use the elements of Japanese architecture that were created from a sustainable perspective, it will greatly contribute to the way we think about environmental issues. After listening to Keith's talk and looking at his work, I felt that he has incorporated Japanese products and elements of Japanese architecture very well. I would like to know if people in Hong Kong are focusing on the decorative elements of Japanese architecture, or if they are trying to incorporate the sustainable elements of Japanese architecture.
Thank you. Can Keith respond to Ishikawa-san's questions?
I think Hong Kong has some fundamental problem in our building and architecture industry is that, first of all, our weather is very humid and wet. And then secondly is about the typhoon, the strong wind in the summer. And thirdly is that because Hong Kong is such a small city, our building has to be super tall, or a skyscraper, even though it is a residential project. So to tackle this problem, most of the structure in Hong Kong is concrete based. But back to 80 years ago or 70 years ago in Hong Kong is actually a lot of wood structure in Hong Kong. But at that time, because the hygienic, the control in Hong Kong is not very good, and also it's easy to get fire in that back to 80 years ago. So also because of the wet and humid weather, there's a termite, those little white color ants that eat woods in Hong Kong. So I think somehow our industry changed to use concrete and base and bricks structure to do our architecture is because these kind of fundamental problem. And also if you see the windows in Hong Kong are all made by aluminum frame. I know in Japan there's a lot of wooden frame, but in Hong Kong we never see aluminum frame except on the tram. That is back to the 100 years ago. I think the Hong Kong market tends to they want to use very, very, very durable material like concrete or metal. And they think traditional sustainable material like wood or paper or other wood, stone are easy to have wear and tear. But I think it is perhaps a misunderstanding or just a habit, I would say. Hong Kong people, they don't want to do the maintenance of the material at home, and they just want to be carefree. They just want easy cleaning, because not like Japanese. I know Japanese, they maintain everything, but Hong Kong people somehow, I would say, we are more lazier, and we don't want to do a lot of maintenance. That's why people they are not willing to use very sustainable material like wood and paper. But I would say this is a misunderstanding or just a habit, because with new technology, as you said, we can treat the wood with weather or insect-proof technique, or even I know there's some new coating on the tatami that it is insect-proof. And then I think even some traditional method can tackle this problem. You know, there's some technique in Japan for a few hundred years already is to burn the wood to charcoal gray, charcoal dark to prevent water and insects. As I said, I use Shikui a lot. Shikui is also very good for wet weather. So I think we still need some time, maybe 10 years or 5 years, to educate people the sustainable material actually can tackle those weather problems. Also, I think we can get a balance between super durable material and sustainable material. Just like Thailand is also as wet as us, but they use a lot of wood. Maybe can we use wood structure in the skyscraper with help of concrete or steel? Maybe we do not need all concrete, but half concrete, half wood. I think it will be a very good topic to study.
Thank you very much. I do agree with you. The future needs to be changed. We need to use more sustainable materials, more eco-friendly materials that we can reuse and reuse again, rather than only if we're using concrete, then it will eventually going to dump. So I agree with you. And I also learned from Hisatake-san that he also would like to propose some wooden and eco-friendly materials. Can you share some of your thoughts?
So, can you share again? So, I like also the potential of wood as an eco-friendly material. As a sustainable material, wood has a variety of characteristics in terms of flammability, which is generally considered to be easy. Non-combustible technology has been developed, and in terms of strength, technology of laminated wood, such as the CLT mentioned to the left, has been established. In Hong Kong, so Ki-san said, with its weather conditions such as humidity and typhoons, the use of wood for exterior use is harder to overcome, but it's possible to use wood in many interior applications. In addition, when considering wood as an eco-friendly material, it seems necessary to use a large amount of wood. One way to do this is to use wood as a structure material, Ki-san says. So I also agree. Even in Hong Kong, where strong horizontal forces such as typhoons act on the building, it's possible to create sustainable building that use wood as a structure material by creating a hybrid structure with concrete and steel, I think.
Thank you very much. This may be one of the issue that we need to discuss within Hong Kong itself. Maybe there's some regulation we need to clear, but definitely this is something that it's still room for us to discuss. And we do have some questions from the floor, and we might not have time to answer all the questions, but we'll try to do so. If we cannot do it online, we'll find a way to look for the answer for you, maybe after the webinar. So maybe I'll just mention one or two of the questions raised up from the audience. We have been discussing quite a lot of wood. We talk about wood products, wood materials. And one of the questions from the audience is that, can we use more bamboos? Because bamboo grows much faster than wood. Can bamboo be an alternative choice for you?
The question for me?
Yes, or maybe
so,
for
bamboo is also possible, but maybe the height of the building floors are so maybe limited. So very famous house by Kengo Kuma. So the house by bamboo. So the TBCM is floor in Olympic, in Peking Olympics. So Beijing Olympics. So but there is one floor building. So but for the structure, it's a little difficult, probably. So but so another techniques, outside bamboo, inside the porous concrete. So so that is also hybrid structure with bamboo and concrete. So it may be a little more high buildings.
I see. So maybe what you just mentioned is that bamboo can be an alternative choice besides wood, but because of the strength of bamboo, it might not be used in maybe high buildings, maybe 1 or 2 floors. Or another suggestion would be in order to use it as a structure material, maybe for interior and exterior, using bamboo would be an alternative. I think that's what I get from you. Any comments from maybe Keith or Ishikawa-san?
日本語でごめんなさい。非常に可能性がある素材だと思っています、竹は。ただ日本ではまだ全然使われていなくて、今後機会があれば、例えば住宅の素材としても使用していきたいとは思ってますけど、まだまだその木に比べて手に入りやすいかというと、そんなに手に入りやすくはないというのが実情なので、今後またそれが変わってきて、例えば香港から竹が手に入るだとかっていうことになっていくと、非常に日本の市場としても使っていけるのかなと考えています。
Thank you very much. Allow me to do some translation here. Ishikawa-san feels that bamboo is definitely one of the potential materials that he would like to use. But unfortunately, in Japan, bamboo is rather difficult to be because there's less bamboo than tree. So he would like to use more tree rather than bamboo. But he also understands that in Hong Kong and in China, bamboo, the production of bamboo, actually they have a constant supply for bamboo, and it is definitely a potential market. If you would like to export bamboo products material from China and Hong Kong to Japan, it would be a great potential for you to do so. Thank you very much. So let's move on to the other questions. One of the audience raised a business oriented question to us. We're talking about Greater Bay Area. GBA is an economic fast growing area including Chinese, British and Portuguese culture. How can Japanese design put into GBA and create value? So in other words, how can Japanese design provide values in the GBA market? So maybe can I ask Keith about your thought about it?
I think first of all is GBA, our population in China, Macau and Hong Kong, all of us like Japan when we have holiday. We like Japanese food. So we are quite familiar to Japanese design and culture, not the living culture, but the pop culture of subculture. So when I would say made in Japan, these 3 words together in a phrase is actually a very good branding. In Hong Kong, in China, in Macau, whenever we see the products is made in Japan or made in Germany, it means quality. I think we are tired about having cheap product from the mainland China factory or Vietnamese, those South Asian factory. Those are very cheap product, we can buy a lot of things, but somehow nowadays our generation loves to spend more to buy a better quality and want the product to be sustained. For example, I would buy a more expensive chair, but I think this can be passed to our next generation for a few decades. So nowadays the market changes. We are more tends to buy good quality, more expensive with quality. So made in Japan products, or even products or material or even the services is very popular in this GBA area because all of us want to get better quality. I think if made in Japan is a brand, it will be very successful, no matter what kind of product or service it is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Made in Japan is a brand. It's already well known by people in China and of course in Hong Kong. And again, we need to have someone who understands both culture in order to satisfy the demand in the future. And that's one of the reasons that we need to have more Hong Kong or maybe Chinese designer who understand both culture to involve in this project in the future. And we still have some time. I would like to entertain one more question from the floor. And it says that Hong Kong government has a new yard waste recycling center to turn fallen trees that are fall down, into wood for furniture and building materials. Is there such cooperation in Japan to reuse recycled material into buildings? Maybe this is something that I need to ask two Japanese speakers. Maybe Hisatake-san, can you respond on that?
Yes, US recycling center to turn furniture building materials. Is this cooperation in Japan to reuse? そう、ちょっと日本語ですいません。お願いできればと思いますけど、リサイクルセンターが香港でできるということですね。
香港で例えば倒木があったときに、それをリサイクルセンター持って行って、家具とか、いわゆる建材にリサイクルするんですけども、日本ではこういったコラボレーション、こういった可能性ってあるんですかっていうことですね。
そうですね。その国がというか、大々的にはないとは思うんですけども、少しずつは広がっていると思いますし、それぞれの、各メーカーがかなりしっかりしているので、日本の場合、そのメーカー自体がそのリサイクルの材料を使って新たなプロダクトを作るっていうのは非常にあると思います。それはフローリングであったり、タイルであったりとかいうことで、それがこのようなガバメントが主導でやるような流れというのは日本もなってたらいいのかなというふうにはちょっと思いましたです。
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, in Japan, the government actually doesn't have such kind of promotion or such kind of facility to contribute to the recycling of waste wood or so forth. But from the private side, private sector, actually there are quite a few of companies are doing so. For example, they actually reuse some of the tree products, wood products, or maybe the bamboo products, and to make it into flooring, or maybe into they mix it with maybe plastic to make it into wooden, durable wooden products and so forth. So it is actually in a private sector level rather than a governmental level. Thank you very much, Hisatake-san. Let's see. Yes, again, this is one of the response from the audience about bamboo, that bamboo using bamboo as part of the decoration materials, not necessarily as structure, as Hisatake-san has mentioned before. And bamboo has been used a lot more in China as more bamboo production available, which can reduce much more carbon than only wood, so we can adopt available and greener local materials. Yes, we definitely do so. We would like to do so. And as mentioned by Ishikawa-san, in Japan, there are less bamboo to be used rather than wood. So they are actually kind of being forced to use wood. But architects like Ishikawa-san and some other young architects would like to use more bamboo products. Maybe this is one of the things that not only the bamboos from China being used in Hong Kong and China, maybe exporters can think of a way of exporting bamboos to Japan. Because again, we need to think of the future. 2025 is the World Expo in Osaka. And if we can introduce bamboo from China or from Hong Kong, maybe this would be a good potential for both sides. Thank you very much. We do still have some other questions that we cannot entertain all, but we will get back to you privately through emails and other forms of communication. And thank you very much. And we still have 5 more minutes to go. Before that, I would like to, as mentioned by 3 speakers today, we do have Japan Pavilion at Design Inspire. So Hong Kong TDC is the organizer of Design Inspire, as many of you may know that. And Japan has been supporting us for so many years. Despite the pandemic, the Design Inspire was put online last year, and we still have a few companies joining us today. So allow me to have some time to show you some of the products of the exhibitors from Japan. And first, I would like to show you the Hirata Tile, which is, yes, Hirata Tile. Some of the handmade products carries Japanese modern design, and some of the tiles were used on the external walls of the Tower of Sun during the 1970 World Expo, which is actually, you can come to Japan and in Osaka, and you can actually see the Tower of Sun by yourself. And next, let's move on to Ikuta. Ikuta, as mentioned by Hisatake-san, they are actually using the Japanese traditional golden leaf and are used in their products as a modern wooden flooring, which is suitable for luxury venues. And next, let's move on to Matsuroku. Their product series of barrier-free is a combination of functionality and fine design, which is widely used in high-end facility in Japan. Next, move on to Naka Industry. The company treasures nature and craftsmanship, and the meaning of their brand, Ki-to-te, is tree and hand, which strongly illustrate the philosophy of the company. Next, let's move on to Sane. They are one of the top brands in Japan, providing high-sense products with the concept of modern design and traditional craftsmanship. Next, move on to Sangetsu. They are also one of the top brands in Japan, supplying high-quality wallpapers, curtains, and has recently collaborated with Kengo Kuma to produce the Kage to To or Hikari, which means shadow and light. Next, move on to Soi Giko. The kumiko, it's a type of wooden design kumiko skill, is one of the finest in Japan, which is the combination of traditional and modern to create shadow and light, not only being used as a door, but also as partitions. And next, let's move on to Union. With the market share of over 80% of door handles made in Japan, their concept of combination of art and hardware has exceeded the boundary of traditional and modern design. Next, move on to Woodworks. They treasure nature by maximizing the usage of tree. Again, this is tree and wood products. And their products are well recognized by designers in Hong Kong and China, and have been used in some of the finest projects in Hong Kong, as mentioned by Keith just now. And next, move on to Yahoo Electrics. They are one of the major suppliers of tailor-made lighting products, not only for public projects, but also for high-end projects owned by private sector. And they also collaborated with well-known product designer Toshiyuki Kita. And last but not least, Yamacho. The company owns more than 5 hectares of forest land in Japan, enabling them to provide high-quality timber. And they are also putting effort in collaborating with product designers such as Takeshi Sawada in some of the furniture products. And thank you very much. If you're interested in contacting these exhibitors, or you would like to seek more information at our Design Inspire, please feel free to visit our website at the Design Inspire. And allow me to conclude this session. This comes to the end of the session by emphasizing that we do see that there are business opportunities in both Japan and Hong Kong, and of course in GBA. And Hong Kong TDC is always there to facilitate the business negotiation And please do not be hesitate to contact our head office in Hong Kong. Or you can actually contact myself or my colleagues in Osaka and in Tokyo in Japan. So this concludes the webinar today. And we look forward to seeing you physically, personally in Hong Kong, or maybe in Japan. Thank you so much and have a pleasant day.